We now have the new game mode Apocalyptic Shadow out for around a week now, and oh boy does fighting Argenti suck. But obviously, we aren't going to just go over him, but also Cocolia. But might talk more about Argenti. However, let's first talk about the game mode in general itself. So first we need to understand the mode itself. And much like Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction, you'll be forming two separate teams for two different nodes. Within these fights, you'll be fighting two separate phases while also having an action value timer. Your overall score will be calculated on just the remaining action timer value. However, if you don't manage to kill the boss, then both the remaining HP and action timer value will be calculated if you lose. You will also be able to repeat a single node. However, unable to change the team, relics, and light cones unless you start all over. Another aspect that you'll be able to select 3 different buffs called Finality's Axiom for each node. Additionally, each boss will have specific traits. So with that overall generic discussion, let's now talk about each boss. For node 1, you'll be fighting against Cocolia along with Japard in the first phase. Cocolia will summon her ice mobs, and if you do not defeat Japard, then he will put up a shield causing Cocolia's toughness bar to not be reduced. So defeating Japard first should be your priority. Once you defeat Cocolia, you will enter the second phase. Then 4 ice mobs will be summoned and Cocolia herself will not have any weaknesses. In order to apply a weakness, you will need to defeat the mobs, and with each defeat, they will apply their own weakness onto Cocolia while also reducing her toughness by a fixed amount. Jumping over to the second node, you will be fighting against Argenti, and truthfully, the harder of the two bosses. At the start, Argenti will summon 4 spear tip mobs, and Argenti himself will enter the toughness protection state. So defeating these spear tip mobs will not only force Argenti out of the toughness protection state, but with each spear tip defeated, they will cause a fixed amount of damage onto the remaining enemies. Once you defeat phase 1, entering the most difficult aspect of this initial iteration of Apocalyptic Shadow, Argenti will summon 2 spear tip mobs with the same effect as phase 1, and 2 shield mobs which will increase his attack power, and when defeated, they will provide a shield for your team. However, the most difficult part of this phase is when Argenti summons the honored statues. When these statues are on the field, they prevent you from attacking Argenti himself, and you need to beat each statue before you can start dealing damage to the knight himself. Alright, so now that we have gone over both boss fights, what we need to do now is we need to talk about teams to build for each boss fight and other team ideas for each fight. Starting with Cocolia, the best team will most likely be the Hypercarry Acheron team with support from both Silver Wolf and Pila, as having them meets the criteria for 2 Nihility units to maximize Acheron, and the fact that you are able to inflict defense shred and guarantee consistent debuffs to get Acheron's ultimate out faster. The last spot can be either Aventurine to provide a shield and constant survivability while also able to apply a debuff with his ultimate, or you can run Fu Xuan to provide damage mitigation and high survivability. Some other team ideas you can run would be the Dot team with Kafka, Black Swan, Ruame, and Huahua, and use the Persistent of Decay buff, as you will tally the total amount of dot damage and dish it out after you inflict Weakness Break. Jumping over to the Argenti side, honestly the best team is going to have to be the Firefly Super Break team. Big surprise, as the new game mode is catered towards the newest unit. But because Firefly is able to target multiple enemies with her enhanced skill and how much damage she is capable of doing, it is no wonder why this team should be the priority, as Argenti just summons so many mobs. Another hypercarry team to consider would be the Jingliu hypercarry with Bronya providing consistent action forward and damage boost, Ruame as well providing damage boost, and Huahua allowing you to consistently get your ultimates off would be ideal. The last team to consider for this fight would be the follow-up attack team with Ratio, Topaz, Robin, and Aventurine, and using the buff Pursuing Apocalypse, as this buff, much like the dot buff, will tally all your follow-up damage, and once you break the enemy's toughness, would deal all that damage to the enemy. Honestly, this new game mode is very fun, and it allows for units to get a shine that they most likely would not in other game modes. But let me know what you guys think so far of Apocalyptic Shadow and how you are enjoying the game mode.